Okay. All right. Hi, my name's Terry Hargrave. I'm the Evelyn and Frank Fried Professor of Marriage and Family Therapy at Fuller Theological Seminary.
My name is Sharon Hargrave, and I'm the Executive Director of the Boone Center for the Family at Pepperdine University. We understand that a lot of you may be dealing with issues right now of feeling unsafe. For me personally, safety has been an issue all my life. My father committed suicide when I was 3 years old. I had a brother that died of acute leukemia when I was 4, and another brother that was murdered when I was 13 years old. Safety has been an issue for me personally because of the things that I experienced when I was young, but it's also been an issue as I've worked as a marriage and family therapist in the therapy room of people questioning what it means to be safe in an unsafe world.
We've given this talk all over the world about being safe in an unsafe world, but today we're giving it from a place that we've never given it before.
Our bedroom!
So while we're sheltering at home, just like probably you are, we have several concerns of safety just exactly like the rest of the world does. From the really mundane type things about do we have enough groceries, do we have enough supplies, to the more serious things about how serious is this virus and how many people are going to get sick and will we get ill ourselves, to the concerns about the financial crisis in the world that this thing will bring about.
We've developed 6 different strategies that we think will be helpful in this time of insecurity. The first strategy that we wanted to talk about is this idea that isolation brings fear and relationships bring stability. But how we do those relationships is also incredibly important. Secure attachment in relationships means that people are available, they're responsive, and they're engaged. So if I'm sitting with my child while they're doing their homework, and let's say they're working on geography, and I'm engaged with them and I'm asking them questions about their geography and they're telling me about their geography and the map that they're working on, it's a much more secure attachment. If I'm sitting there thinking I'm being with my child and I'm on my cell phone and they're working on their homework, it's not going to provide near the sense of stability that we're looking for when we want to spend time with one another in relationships. And I would even say that's true on social media too. If we're spending time with somebody via Zoom or a chat room and we're also working on texting over here or being diverted to other things that are going on in the room, it's not going to feel as stable as if we're focused and engaged in the relationships that we're dealing with at that time.
It's important to remember that you are not alone. Even though you may be isolated, the truth is that many of us are experiencing some of the same exact things you are. Even if you're not physically in the same house with somebody, there are things that you can do to connect. Think in terms of what you would like to hear from people. For instance, when you send a text, don't ask them, "How are you doing?" Send them a message about how you feel about them, or take some time to mine some of their thoughts. When you're interacting with people in your house, if you're sheltering in place with somebody else, actually take the time to nurture their character by telling them and calling out some of the strengths that they have, some of the great things about them, and how you personally feel about those things. Those things that will come back to you as you give them to other people. The second point in increasing security is to realize that empowerment brings more safety. Choice brings empowerment.
Are you going to say more about that?
He's just doing the run-up right now.
Oh, okay.
No, that's the second point. Even at this time where we feel like the world is a little crazy and things are out of control, we actually do have a lot of choices. The first choice is that we have the ability to structure our lives and organize our lives to make sure that we do things, very simple things like following the recommendations of the CDC and following good practices in terms of hand washing and keeping our distance when we're socially interacting with people. You do have the power to make daily choices that keep you organized and structured through the day. For instance, just sitting down and having a meal with someone in your family, making sure that you plan it out so that you go through the order of making it pleasant for yourself, making sure that you get up on a regular time, that you do your work, but you also do it when you feel good about yourself. Choose to think about this virus in terms of, do I focus on the threat or do I focus on the recovery? We don't want to be Pollyannish, but the truth is that we will make it through this situation. We'll pile one day upon another day and we'll get through it. Just like one good brick on another good brick eventually builds a wall.
I think one thing that we can do with this whole issue of power is communicate to the people around us that we do have choices and we do have power. So again, if we're working in a family situation where our children are at home and they come in and they say, I'm bored, I don't have anything to do, that's a good time that we can begin to say, okay, well, we have some choices. What are some choices of some of the things that you could do to help children to begin to think, always in all situations, if I slow down enough to think about it, I do have some choices. I also think that for families and for individuals, we're making macro decisions. We're making larger decisions about how we're going to handle the virus. And we need to include family members on what is our power to make the decision here. What are we going to decide as a group is the best thing for us to do? I remember during the 9/11 crisis, we had to make a decision about whether or not Terry would get on an airplane to go to a speaking engagement that he had booked several months before. Our kids at the time were in middle school and high school, so we knew it would be disconcerting for them if their dad just got on an airplane without us talking about it. So we sat down together as a family and we talked about the fact that the trip wasn't a very far trip. It was about an hour plane flight. We talked about the fact that airport security was heightened at that time. And so as a group, we decided it would be okay for him to go on this trip. And I think that was so much more empowering to me and to the kids than if Terry had just been the one that he had decided about whether or not he was going to go on the trip. Because we were all together, because we could think about all the options, we were able to make a decision that made all of us feel safe and secure.
We're debating if we keep going because there's a lawnmower going.
I think we have to stop and eat lunch. What are our choices here? Strategy number 3 that we want to talk about is this whole idea that you don't have to be in control and that different can be good. The situation that we're in currently, it's really hard to determine what the best decision is. That's complicated by the fact that we're getting different answers to the same questions from different sources. We have state governments that are making different decisions than local governments. We have cities that are making different decisions than other cities. And so we're getting a lot of information about the best way to handle the coronavirus. Family members, friends, associates are going to fall into different categories. Some are going to want to make a more conservative decision. Some are going to want to make a decision that provides more flexibility and more freedom. I think it's very important at this time that we take the time to listen to one another, to hear the other person's point of view, to realize that they might have something to share with us that's important for us to know, and that different can actually be good.
2 heads are always better than one when it comes to making decisions. There is no one on the planet that has all the answers to the coronavirus. So we need each other in making informed decision and accepting the consequences. Ready?
Ready.
Okay. The 4th strategy is that I don't know. The 4th strategy in feeling safe in an unsafe world is remembering the fact that hard times bring forth growth, and growth eventually results in hope. You know, any virtue that comes in life doesn't come during the good times. It really comes during the hard times. Just think about the way that our busy lives run on a normal clip. You very seldom think about your neighbors, or maybe you're not as faithful in thinking about your families and friends. This coronavirus has made us very much more thoughtful about thinking about those people, but also giving to those people, taking care of them, asking them, do you need me to get you something? Do you need me to go shopping for groceries? This virtue of giving is actually being developed in us because we're experiencing the hard times. One of our favorite verses is out of Romans chapter 5. It says that suffering produces endurance, and endurance, character, and character produces hope, and hope does not disappoint. On the front end of learning how to produce endurance, we're taking one step at a time, trusting that we will learn something from this process. Primarily, we'll come out loving more, being more hopeful, and having more joy if we stick together and remember that these hard times will produce the character in us.
I know I mentioned earlier that in my family there was a lot of trauma when I was young. What that produced in me was a love of family, a passion to see families do well. And what that gave me was a profession of becoming a marriage and family therapist and having the privilege of sitting with people over the years to help them bring hope and healing to their own families. A good exercise during this time might be that you ask your children, you ask your colleagues, you ask your friends on the phone, tell me about a time that you went through that was a specifically hard time. Tell me what you learned from it. Tell me how you think you're better. As we share these stories with each other of times that we have gotten through difficult times before, we'll begin to see what's happening in our lives now and what's strengthening us and causing us to grow. The fifth strategy that we wanted to talk about was the importance of focusing on the positive. Focusing on the positive brings joy. Let me tell you about my Christmas break. We had a trip planned where we were going to stop and see several family members along the way. The first stop was in Texas at our in-laws' house, and we got there and they were both sick. The next stop was to see my son in Kentucky, who was in a play over Christmas. And I was concerned the whole time I was there that I was going to get him sick because I'd been around my sick in-laws. The next day, we got on a plane and we went to New York City and got to meet our brand new grandson. Not 24 hours after I met my brand new grandson, I myself was sick with the flu. So although we traveled to New York City to spend Christmas with our family, Terry and I spent Christmas without our family as my daughter and her husband went off to celebrate Christmas with his family. Let me tell you the other version of the story. We had a trip planned at Christmas where we were going to see several family members, and the first stop was at my in-laws' house. And when we got there, they were both sick. My memory of those 2 days is them being so gracious to us while we were there, and we had to make some caregiver decisions for them, and they were so appreciative and so kind. We got on a plane to go see my son in Kentucky. We got to see 2 of his play performances. We got to spend a day doing something fun that I never dreamed that we would get to do, and really enjoyed the time with him. The day after that, we got on a plane and we went to New York City and we met my grandson for the first time. Not 24 hours after that, I myself was sick with the flu. But even though I was sick with the flu in New York City, I got to do 2 things at Christmas that are just etched in my mind. I went to a short Christmas Eve, 45-minute Christmas Eve service that was for children with my older grandson, and got to watch him enjoy the kings and the shepherds and all the festivities. And the next thing is the next morning that we woke up, it was Christmas morning, before my daughter and her family left to go be with her in-laws, I got to see my older grandson experience Santa for the first time. When I ask you which one of those versions is true, I would tell you that they both are. But when I take the time and the energy to focus on what went well, it brings me great joy. Focusing on the positive brings great joy. No. Focusing on what I'm doing well in this video is so much better than focusing on my screw-ups. Okay.
Money.
The sixth and final strategy is to rely on your faith. This is one of the most powerful things that we can do in feeling safe in an unsafe world. Just the small things that you do in terms of praying together, reading scriptures together, and binding yourselves together and talking about how God is involved in shaping us. These are the things that strengthen family, strengthen our relationships, and at the end of the day, put us more in touch with the Spirit of God and Jesus's framework of telling us that, lo, I am with you always.
We can assume that over the next month to 6 weeks, there'll be times that you will feel unsafe. There'll be times that you question decisions that you've made. There'll be times that you feel irritable or stressed with family members. What we suggest is that you would review one of these 6 strategies and just start to implement them to change the way you're thinking, to change the way that you're interacting with the people around you. We're so thankful that you took some time to review these principles with us today. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact me at the Boone Center for the Family. Thank you so much.
That's it? Is that good?
Yeah.
So thanks for watching.
Thank you. Bye.